Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Breakdown. It is January 4th, 2023. Got the year right. Look at me go. Pretty proud of that. I've been expecting to get the year wrong for quite a while with the start of a new year. But it's only been a couple of days since we had our back from the break, January 1st kickoff to what we're cautiously calling season 5 over here. And already we got stuff to talk about. There's been a lot that's been going on. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to be joined in a little bit by, by Sarah Biggs. She's going to help us try to make sense of some of the things that I'm going to talk about for a little bit here. And as always, we've got the floor open on our Twitter spaces as well. So if anybody wants to tap in and add anything to the conversation, you can join us on Twitter spaces. And if you're on the YouTubes or the Facebooks, then you can also please feel free to drop a chat in. I see we already have our first comment in of the chat. So there's that. Moving on. The first thing we got to talk about today, we saw at the end of the year, the NDP were very quick to be like, hey, guys, we fundraised. And today the UCP decided that they were going to try to match the numbers. And it's a little bit interesting when we start to take a look at what those numbers are. So Rachel Notley came out on the 3rd and said Alberta's NDP raised more than $7.1 million last year, a record, raised more than $3.2 million in the fourth quarter, another record. And raised more than $265,000 on December 31st, another record. And then there was a thread. We're not going to show you the whole thread. The UCP came out today and they said, hey, you know what? We did okay too. If you add up all of our numbers together, we raised 10.8 for the whole year of 2022. Now, there's some things that need to be taken in context with this. So thing number one is that 10.8 million includes a couple of really key events. The first event from last year, obviously, would be Jason Kenney. He was running a leadership review. He received a lot of donations through, reportedly through Calgary Lougheed, which was his constituency. There were a lot of donations that were made to the UCP party in order to try to save Mr. Kenney. So that's a pretty big chunk of that change, presumably. But also, one of the other things that happened was they had that little leadership race, and they're claiming that $3.8 million from the leadership candidates contributed to that 10.8 total. So if we take the 3.8 away, then in just fundraising monies alone, it very much appears that the NDP actually raised more money outside of the leadership race, because that leadership race money was used for the leadership race, which means it's spent. It's gone. It's not money that the party has access to anymore, presumably. So the victory lap on the UCP, it's going to be really interesting to see, because the important thing to remember is that these are preliminary numbers. These aren't official numbers. These aren't final numbers. These are what the party is choosing to disclose publicly. The best part that I got to just share, which was somebody, a very astute reader, I'm going to go with reader on Twitter, pointed out, the UCP talked about how they also raised a remarkable $265,063. So they managed to raise exactly $63 more than the NDP raised, which is, I'm sure, totally a random number. He said entirely facetiously. Moving on from there, one of the other things that we saw, Daniel Smith took a bit of a victory lap. Fuel taxes, gas prices are lower in Alberta than any other province, and it isn't close. They cut the full provincial fuel tax. That's some money. Make it more affordable to families get to work, drive to hockey practice, and take a vacation. And then there was a graph, and the font on the infographics terrible, because I know we weren't the only people who looked at the Alberta number and thought that they were quoting August numbers again. They do that a lot. They like to quote August numbers. We thought they were quoting August numbers. It's apparently average. It's just a garbage font. But it's worth looking into, because according to this, hey, Alberta has some of the cheapest gas in the country. 20 cents cheaper than the national average. Wonder how that looks over time. I wonder what what the prices look like over time. Well, let's go to Stats Canada for that, because if you take a look at what the numbers are, pretty consistently, when you compare the price of gas in Edmonton to the price of gas to the average of Canada, guess what the price difference is? Give or take, it's about 20 cents. So I guess gas prices went down across the entire country at the same time. But ironically enough, one of the things that happened is right before all of the tax changes happened, there was a little bit of a price bump that was introduced like 2 days before the gas tax was revoked. Now, this is a graph from economist Trevor Toom. He does wonderfully objective analysis of data and stuffs. He's a self-proclaimed and very proud numbers nerd. And he put this graph together, and it just takes a look at what the first day through was. Now, what the UCP government likes to say is, you know what, 13 cents a liter, y'all. That's how much money we're saving you on the average liter of gas. You're welcome. We're the best. Except, according to the modeling that Dr. Toom did, it's more like 2.6 cents per liter. So there's not nearly, that's a smaller, I'm not an economist, and I would absolutely defer to Dr. Toom's analysis on this, but I'm pretty sure that 2.6 is a smaller number than 13 cents. And because we did see, as you can see in the little graphy graph, if you're watching on the videos, if you're not watching on the videos, I promise there is a little graphy graph, and it does have this little bump here. You can see that the price did bump up right before January 1st. And there's a lot of people who have said, hey, you know what? That seems kind of shifty. That seems like maybe the gas companies knew that there was going to be a drop in the price. So maybe we equalize it a little bit. We get to take home a little bit more of the money. This was one of the concerns when the UCP dropped the gas tax in the first time. And the honorable Dale Nally wanted to be very clear from his Ministry of Service Alberta and Red Tape Reduction that they're watching Close. And he issued this little letter where he says, as of yesterday, Alberta's government has fully paused the tax on fuel, saving Albertans 13.6 cents a liter on gas and diesel, except, as we just established, maybe not so much with the 13.6 part. Our government expects fuel retailers to pass on these savings to their customers. That's why Service Alberta and Red Tape Reduction's Consumer Investigations Unit is monitoring gas prices at stations across the province to ensure there's no evidence of gouging. So far, we found that prices at local stations are aligned with current market conditions. However, to protect Albertans, we will keep a close eye on prices. Businesses found guilty of price gouging can be fined up to $300,000 or receive 2 years in jail time. And that really begs some questions. How do you put Shell in jail? How do you put Esso in jail? Is it the whole company? Do they go, is it one per person? Do they take turns? Is it on specific days? Is it executives only? Is it upper management only? It's a funny little way to say things. So that's what we wanted to quickly touch on in regards to the fuel tax fund. If you are somebody who wants to follow the fuel tax fund, Dr. Toom seems to be promising to be doing a regular analysis of how much the pass through or how much savings Albertans actually get from this cut in fuel tax. But one thing that's important to realize is that the cut in the fuel tax also equals a cut in revenue for provincial services. And it's hard to know exactly what that number is going to look like, because there were periods where for most of the year, the fuel tax was paused. And then there were periods where for some of the year, the fuel tax wasn't paused. Dr. Toom also did a ballpark back of the napkin kind of estimation. This little program that's saving Albertans apparently roughly 2.5 cents so far is going to cost $1.2 billion. That's with a B, in revenue for the province. So there's a lot of people who are raising some concerns, because on one hand, here we have this program whose success is certainly up for debate. There's a lot of people who have said it seems like there's a lot of gas companies who are artificially raising their prices to maybe absorb some of that extra revenue, and it's not making a huge difference at the pump for most people. And we're cutting $1.2 billion out of our budget. This is during a time where there's a massive healthcare crisis. There's massive shortages in education. Classroom sizes are blooming out of control. But for 2.5 cents on the 13 cents, we're cutting over $1 billion from the budget. So that's super nice. moving on from there, we want to talk about one of the stories that we touched on Sunday's show. Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms President John Carpay turned himself into police after a warrant was issued for his arrest. This was regarding the time that he had a private investigator follow a Manitoba judge. For those of you that aren't familiar, the nuts and bolts of the story are Mr. Carpay had a court case that was going with the JCCF, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. We'll get to them in just a sec. He had a court case with them that was being heard in regards to mask restrictions, health protections, all of that sort of thing. And he paid a private investigator to follow the judge who was hearing the case around to see if he could catch him not following health restrictions himself and thereby embarrass him or prove some kind of hypocrisy. Ignoring the fact that this is wildly, wildly unethical, it's also, as Mr. Carpay appears to have found out, kind of illegal because he does have, by some reports, up to 2 charges that are against him. And there was a Canada-wide warrant issued for his arrest. He turned himself in on New Year's Eve and spent the night in what is presumably remand without a pillow. Struggle's real. It's real. But this has blossomed into a whole new conversation because, and I want to apologize to our regular listeners. We missed this joke. We should have been on this joke and we missed it. There were a couple other folks on Twitter who picked up on it real quick because one of the questions was, however, will John Carpay and the JCCF afford the bail? Well, maybe a generous donation from the Premier of Alberta is going to help out with that. Because some of you might remember, we've been talking about this since May, June. Danielle Smith and her GoFundMe. So as a quick little recap and why this is actually pertinent and relevant, months ago, coming up to almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, Danielle Smith started a GoFundMe to try to raise money to enable a lawsuit to force the government to provide 2 things. First of all, she wanted to, let's make some alternative treatments available. So we're talking, she wanted people to have access to ivermectin. She wanted people to have access to hydroxychloroquine. She wanted all of the woo science stuff. She wanted that to be made accessible. And that didn't happen. The other thing that she wanted to do was to sue the government in order to make more supplies of a particular type of vaccine available. Well, there's supply chain issues that resolve themselves. So that didn't happen either. So at the end of the day, Danielle Smith was left with a GoFundMe that had over $100,000 that she had crowdfunded for a lawsuit that never, ever happened. Now, we tried to ask Danielle Smith what happened with that money because you then went to the UCP leadership race. You were able to put together $150,000 for the leadership fee, which had to have come out of somewhere. You didn't happen to use that money. And Danielle Smith released a statement after she blocked us where she said, no, absolutely did not use that money for my leadership campaign. Nope, that's not what happened. Which then posed the question, what did happen? Well, apparently, according to 2 different people who are directly involved with it, different things happened. So one of the things that reportedly happened was, and this is from the CTV article that's on the screen right now, CTV was told by her lawyer, this is Derek Fromm, who is one of the partners of the law firm that keeps crossing paths with Danielle Smith, because not only was it the law firm that she was going to use for these lawsuits that never happened, it also happens to be the law firm that her campaign chair, ex-Floor Crossing UCP or ex-Floor Crossing PC / Wild Rose / PC MLA, and current right-hand guy, Rob Anderson, run. He was the other partner in the firm. It's also the same firm that came up, by and large, with the Free Alberta strategy. So there's not a lot of overlap here. Well, in that CTV article, Derek Fromm said that of the $103,000 raised, he said about $90,000 was in the process of being donated to the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, Mr. Carpay's organization. After roughly $10,000 was collected by his firm, not John Carpay's firm, by the Rob Anderson, Derek Fromm firm. Roughly $10,000 was collected by that firm for exploratory work, and then GoFundMe took some of the money. So what are you going to do? But then it gets fun, because the next day, The Danielle Smith campaign issued a separate statement, presumably coming from Rob Anderson in some reports. Smith's campaign responded to our inquiries Tuesday night, stating that $13,000 of the money collected was spent on legal bills, roughly $3,000 went to GoFundMe, and about $60,000 had been donated to the JCCF, again, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. An additional approximately $25,000 remains in trust with the firm to eventually be used when directed to advance the same or similar litigation already commenced on the same or related issue. A statement signed by the Danielle Smith UCP leadership campaign read the day after that they were given totally different numbers. So that's not weird at all. He said, not at all sarcastically. Now, one of the other big questions that remains in all of this, and one of the questions that Danielle Smith has so far refused to answer, is so here's the funny thing about the JCCF. We all know how much Danielle Smith loves her loopholes. We're going to talk about some of those as we work our way through the rundown here. But the JCCF isn't just a law firm. They aren't just an advocacy group. They're a registered charity, which means that when you make a donation to the JCCF, you get a tax receipt that is tax deductible. And one of the questions that Danielle Smith to date has not answered is, did she flip this, I don't know, $90,000 or $60,000? It's so hard to tell depending on which paragraph you read, into a tax deductible donation that she gets to write off with this year's taxes. She hasn't answered that question. We're still blocked. We probably won't be able to get the answer, but if there's any intrepid reporters out there who want to maybe see if she'd be willing to, I don't know, be transparent and display some kind of integrity or something, that'd be swell, because we'd love to get the answer to that question. And we're pretty sure we're not the only ones. Moving on from there, we got like 3 more, and then we're bringing Sarah Biggs in to tell me, Nate, why do you say all of these things? There's a fun little news story that, and I probably shouldn't call it a news story. Let's call it a column. Let's call it an editorial by one of the outlets that we're still working on. We're doing a deep dive on them. I promise you, I swear it. Life's just been busy. Talking about the True North, the True North Freedom Institute of Freedomness or something. I can't. They go by True North. It's a whole thing. We're gonna get into it in a couple of weeks. But they ran a story talking about Danielle Smith's other right-hand guy, a gentleman named Marshall Smith. And it's a pretty feel-good story. Now, I want to be really clear. I'm going to make some jokes during this segment. I'm going to say some sarcastic things during this segment. I am absolutely not making fun of anybody who is dealing with recovery or addiction. If you've been following the show for any length of time, you know that we take those topics real seriously over here. And we've got an episode that we're going to be dropping on Friday. It's already available for our patrons, but we've got an episode on Friday where we're going to be talking about some of the things that need to be done to deal with the mental health and addictions crisis that we're seeing in Alberta and across, quite frankly, Canada right now. So I'm not dragging on people who are dealing with substance use, substance abuse, addictions, mental health. That's not what this segment is about. Let's get that out of the way right from the start. But there are some things in this article that we do need to talk about, because the article is presented as this fulsome biography of Marshall Smith, who started his political career in BC working with the BC Liberals. Now, there's a lot of people who are going to say, oh, but the BC Liberals. If you know anything about BC politics, you know that the BC Liberals, for the longest time, were, in effect, the BC Conservatives. It was just a different name. It was different politics over there. Sarah's probably going to kick me for saying that, but it's pretty accurate. The BC Liberals were a conservative party in BC by most measure. Marshall Smith started working with the BC Liberals. He developed a substance abuse issue. He ended up living on the streets for some time. He did recover, and full props to that. That's great. But the concerns and the questions that we have to do with where people are taking drug treatment, drug policy, mental health treatment, mental health policy, houselessness, homelessness policy, based on this guy's anecdotal firsthand experience, especially when there's some holes in the story. So the way that the True North story presents it is there was a period of time where Mr. Mr. Smith, um, 2007, he got clean. And then, next thing you know, he's the chief of staff to Jason Lewan for a period of time when Jason Lewan was the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, the great job that he did with that. But it leaves out a bunch of years. And in particular, we want to talk about the years from 2008 to 2011 because they're kind of relevant. They're kind of important, perhaps. So let's start with what he was doing. He was the director of the Baldy Hughes Addiction Treatment Center. He quit on March 3rd, 2011. How do we know? Well, it was a big enough story. It actually made the news. So it was actually covered by the BC News. And they talked about the fact that the center was racked with controversy. $20,000, which was owed to suppliers that hadn't been paid. The direct quote is, on March 3rd, Marshall Smith, the former executive director of Baldy Hughes Addiction Treatment Center and Therapeutic Community, suddenly left his position. That's from the Prince George Citizen. Now, this lines up, interestingly enough, with another news story that was published. And that's the one that talks about some controversy that existed with that rehab center. Not only was it the recipient of multiple contracts, some suggest inappropriately, by the Liberal government, the BC Liberal government, that Mr. Smith had previously worked for. But it actually gets worse. It gets a little bit more gross. And I'm going to read directly from the article here. Sources said BHTC, which is the facility senior staff of Marshall Smith, a former BC Liberal ministerial aide, gave addicts party membership phone lists. AB, which is the initials for somebody who wants to remain anonymous, a former employee requesting anonymity due to job loss fears due to the current government employment, said Smith had addicts cold calling party members to solicit support for then Liberal cabinet minister Kevin Falcon in his failed 2011 party leadership bid against Christy Clark. AB said using addicts was a clear violation of duty responsibility. Some of them are court assigned to be there. Certainly Smith himself, in addiction recovery for years, was a Falcon supporter. Another person speaking on condition of anonymously, EF, seeking anonymity due to job loss fears, said addicts told him they were pressed to do the Falcon work. They said no. Marshall gave them grief, EF said. Marshall would explain why Falcon should be the next leader. It was a very political environment. That leadership vote happened on February 26, 2011. Marshall Smith suddenly left his role with that facility like a week later. It's not a great look. The timing certainly begs some questions. Now, in one of those news stories, Marshall Smith says, oh, no, nobody was ever forced to do anything they didn't want to. That would be unethical. I'm paraphrasing the quote. But it really raises the question as to one of the things that we've heard over the years of doing the show is that when it comes to dealing with mental health and addictions issues, it's very much a situation where you have to meet people where they are. You have to provide them the treatments that they're accessible to. You have to be willing to do multiple modalities. And if you look at people who are entering recovery or entering addictions treatment as ways to collect paychecks, as ways to pad the bottom line, or perhaps even most cynically, as ways to accomplish political goals by forcing them to be political volunteers in leadership campaigns, you're not putting, it appears, the wellness of those people ahead of everything else. And what we've seen from drug policy in Alberta with the closing of supervised consumption sites under, quite frankly, false pretenses, as we saw with Lethbridge, where there are accusations of millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars being lost that were never lost. And that was used as the reason to close the supervised consumption site, one of the busiest supervised consumption sites in North America, that absolutely saved lives. When that's used as a pretense, at the same time that Marshall Smith was the right-hand guy to the guy what closed it. When we see Alberta moving more and more away from meeting people who are trying to access recovery where they are to a more forced model, where we have a premier who's openly musing on her radio show about, you know what, maybe it wouldn't be terrible if we did just start arresting addicts and forcibly transporting them to treatment. Maybe that would be a good thing. Maybe that's an option. That's not putting long-term recovery. And in fact, as you'll hear in that interview that I alluded to, where we sat down with you and Thompson from each and every, the evidence is overwhelming that forced treatment does more harm than good. Period. There are scientifically evidence-based ways that we can address the mental health crisis and that we can address the opioid crisis, and some of them cost way less money than the paths that we're currently pursuing. Oddly enough, none of that was mentioned in the True North article. Sorry, editorial column. I still don't know what to call it. Moving on from there, we got some news about children's drugs as well. This is our drugs episode, I guess, is what this is turning into. Some of you might remember on December 6th, Danielle Smith beat up a lectern and then announced that she had arranged for the purchase of 5 million bottles of children's ibuprofen and children's acetaminophen, or children's Tylenol, as the brand name would be, from a company that doesn't technically make it in the way that they needed it at the time. The company's called Atabay Pharmaceuticals, and Daniel Smith made a big thing. They're like, hey, there's this shortage of children's Tylenol. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to Turkey. We've got this company. They're going to be great. They're going to, right now what they do is they make the precursor chemicals. So they make the ibuprofen, they make the acetaminophen. They don't mix it together in the pills or the liquid yet, but they got the stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to get them to like custom make a batch. Now there's a minimum order. It's 5 million. We're paying a premium, which means more than market value in order to get this stuff. But we're going to get this stuff. There's 10 planes on the runway. They're going to be flying any minute now. It's going to be fantastic. We just have to wait for a little bit of approval from Health Canada. No big deal, right? It's just a little approval. Well, except that little approval turned into a whole lot of approval because Atabay didn't actually have any of the required credentials to sell the drugs in Canada. They didn't have the labels made. They didn't have the packaging made. They didn't have the approval for anything. Daniel Smith, Jason Copping, they're on it though. They're working with Health Canada. They're going to get approval to get these drugs on kids' shelves in no time. I want to read a couple of quotes from the press release. Because again, this was announced on December 6th, and it was supposed to arrive before Christmas. I think just about every parent with young ones at home is frustrated and worried about the shortage of children's over-the-counter medications right now, Smith said. It's distressing to our families and healthcare professionals when symptoms can't be treated at home. Many families are feeling overwhelmed, dealing with especially fevers, coughs, and other issues with kids. As soon as the medication arrives in the province, it will be distributed to community and retail pharmacies so that parents and caregivers can purchase it for their children. Seems pretty clear. The goal of this program was to put these children's drugs on pharmacy shelves so parents could buy them, so families could buy them. Now, at the time of the press release, Daniel Smith did also say, hey, you know what? The extra, we're going to sell it to the rest of the country. We're sure they'll buy it. It's cool. A couple of things have happened in the meantime and in between time. One of them is the supply chain issues have largely been resolved. Most pharmacies, at the very least, have the products. Some of them have the products right on the shelves. Most of them have them behind the shelves so that if people want to access them, they can. Well, we got some news yesterday. Health Canada has authorized the import of children's acetaminophen, so the Tylenol, not the ibuprofen, from the Turkish company into Alberta. There's only one catch. The approval that Health Canada issued isn't for private pharmacies. It is for in-hospital use only. That's it. That's the only approval that these drugs have so far. So these drugs can't be delivered to Shoppers or Rexall or anything like that. They can be delivered to an Alberta Health Services facility because they still don't have the correct labeling. But if it's used inside of a government healthcare facility, then they're able to get an exemption for that. So they're going to get all of these 5 million bottles and drop them presumably on AHS's lap and say, please hold on to them, I guess, until we can get the labels swapped or they expire. It's absolutely ridiculous. This whole program, and again, this was something that Smith was like, "Oh, we're optimistic that it'll arrive before Christmas." It clearly hasn't arrived before Christmas, because that was like 2 weeks ago, and it's not going to be arriving anytime soon because there's still no word on when that approval will be coming for the private stuff. We saw an announcement just on January 4th. Sorry, that's the wrong graphic. We saw an announcement just a couple of days ago where City TV said, "Yeah, we looked into it, and they don't actually know. They don't have any information for when it's going to be approved for sale." So, hope you like spending money on drugs that you can't technically buy yet, I guess. Last thing that we wanted to hit on before we bring Sarah Biggs in. People have been asking about the affordability initiative. So a while back, Daniel Smith and UCP announced that they were going to be giving Danny bucks. You got kids? $100 for each of them for 6 months. As long as you make less than $180,000. Don't have kids? Well, it kind of sucks to be you then. But if you have kids, each one of them is worth $100 for 6 months. It's going to start in January. Relief is coming. Help is on the way. Well, at least an announcement of help is on the way is coming. Matt Jones today tweeted out, on January 9th, we will be announcing important affordability payment application and distribution details, including the launch date. So the launch date isn't January 9th. They're just going to be, today they announced the announcement of the launch date. So that's great. There's a lot of questions in regards to how this program is going to be rolled out and why it's even required for the provincial government to be the ones running the show on this. And with that right there, I'm going to go ahead and bring in, for her take on this, what I'm going to presume is a very fiery Sarah Biggs. Sarah, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for being willing to jump in live from the beautiful scenic community of you're in the Banff.
I am in Banff. I took my daughter, my eldest, and her best friend. We on a little 3-day trip, and then we
Ladies'
were
night
at the
in
top of
Banff.
the ladies' night in Banff. Whoop. We were just at the gondola, and we had a terrible dinner at the top.
Well, that's no good.
It was not worth the money. Definitely. We took beautiful pictures, but it was cold. It was windy. And then we got stuck for 10 minutes in the gondola.
Well, it's Banff in January.
But
it's going to be cold.
It was warm. It was warm, like compared to what I used to deal with in Lake Louise. But no, it's good. Not home. Trying to, just the school calendar's been shifted. So
there you go. Let's work our way backwards. So what do you think about the it's totally reasonable that the provincial government has said, you know what, rather than work with the available federal tax data, we're going to make people apply to this affordability program, and having to build the infrastructure and everything for that is going to delay the affordability as people are recovering from Christmas. That's totally reasonable and responsible, and a responsible use of taxpayers' money, right?
Of course. It's a very expensive appeals to the feds that will do absolutely nothing and just cause a lot of headaches. I tweeted about that this week. No, they've been spending a lot of money for conservative government, especially on things that, so being fiscal conservatives is a part of it, is using systems that are in place in order to minimize government intervention. Blah, blah, blah. CRA, okay, so you have the age and disability and seniors pensions. They have that information, so they should have gotten their money like Tuesday or today or yesterday or something, whatever. Like, they should be sending the money right away. Don't make them wait. Secondly, I know it hurts when you're bashing Ottawa and then you call them, you're like, hey, if we transfer you, like, I don't know, $1 billion, can you please distribute it to our taxpayers? They would have signed a check to Ottawa. Can you imagine?
They could have called it a transfer payment. And
I gotta watch my language because I have kids in my
the swear jars for Ernest tonight.
But no, let's not be like fuck.
There we go.
Like is it like, are we gonna have to like click a box and say I promise I'm not making over $180,000 and then click another box that says I'm not a robot?
I
Is
I
that
hope we
is
get to
this
do
where
one of
we're
those
at?
like fun captchas where it's like find the bus, because I always miss one of the buses. I don't know where they hide that fourth friggin' bus, but it's always somewhere, and then I have to do it a second time. But it like
So it's stupid. It's absolutely fucking stupid. Like, it's talk about a huge waste of money. We all know that the COVID provincial money rollout was a disaster. Now a lot of people are paying it back now. But Revenue Canada knows how much each family does every year. They already have all the you just do queries. If I was the Premier Office, I would direct Revenue Canada to distribute X amount of dollars for X amount of time to those individuals that fits a certain criteria. But that would be too complicated, and they would have to walk on their egos a little bit.
it's just that, like,
But
we saw.
hold on,
Yep.
hold on. She could be trying to make her case for an Alberta Revenue Agency, y'all.
Which would be a huge money saver for everyone. He said, "I'm
No,
being so
it's $15
sarcastic
billion.
tonight."
It's $15 billion in salary over the next 10 years.
Well, that
Just saying.
sounds like a good investment.
It's very fiscal conservative.
Not really. So, like, we saw with, I guess here's what my question is: Do you think that people have reason to be concerned with this little rollout? Because it seems like, he said cautiously, with the recent report that we saw from the Auditor General, where he was like, "Hey, so that program that you did to help the small businesses, there was a boatload of places that wasn't appropriate for, that got a lot of money, and we lost a lot of money on that, and we're not collecting hardly any of it back." Do
But the
people
thing
have
is that
reason to go?
they can't even audit properly on who, what they picked up 51 of them and
So,
40 answered back. Like, what the fuck is this? Like,
so what could go
seriously,
wrong,
it's
right?
ridiculous. It's bad accounting principles, just saying.
Okay, and you do have a background in accounting,
Apparently, yeah,
so
I
there
knew
we
a
go.
thing or two.
Ringing endorsement from Sarah Biggs on the UCP's program. To There we go.
I'm still not getting into the Premier's office in the next 6 months.
Well, that's okay though. Let's talk about the drugs. So we got we're a month. We're a month in 2 days. We'll be a month out from the announcement that any day now. We saw the celebratory tweet from Rob Anderson. I think he was trying to channel Rachel Notley's "Pick Up Your Tools," but we saw the celebratory tweet from Rob Anderson where he did the 10 planes on the runways, folks. I really hope we're not paying for gas for those 10 planes. Maybe that's why the airports were so screwed up over the holidays. All of the
No, we
planes
are
were
paying
backed
for
up.
gas. Usually the purchaser is responsible for freight.
Delightful. The drugs still haven't been approved for pharmacies, but we can put them in the hospitals so that...
Okay, hold on. So did the hospitals really, really, really had a shortage
Not
of
that I ever heard
paracetamol? Not that
anything
I'm
of,
aware of.
but they'll
And
have
they
more
paid
now.
and they paid a premium on it too.
Well, because of the
Did
fierce
you see that
competition
line?
for the product that
Yeah,
didn't
the
exist.
fierce.
Like, you can't even make this stuff up.
I'm on vacation, Nate. My blood pressure is going up.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Like, can we just do something nice for once?
Maybe just if we did it well, that would be great.
Yeah, there's that too. But it's a little complicated. But I'm gonna be curious to see. So there's gonna be 5 shipments. 10 or 5?
10 plane loads.
10. So that's 500,000 bottles a plane. And I'm suspecting they're gonna be using the Antonovs, so those aren't cheap. It's the big, 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 big Ukrainian ones. They're the giant ones. Like,
are they available right now?
yeah. No, they do. No, they located them in different countries. They still do deliveries. Like, When you see Antonov landing in Calgary, well, last year was mostly for like COVID-19 tests and things like that. But it's big cargo. It's very, very specialized. It's, the Antonov is like the Cadillac of
You're
all
getting really
planes.
excited about this plane.
It's beautiful. But no, it's ugly. It looks like a beluga, actually. But no, so
Belugas can blow air bubbles, air rings.
baby beluga.
We're doing great tonight.
Yeah. My daughter likes Coco Melon a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see, but it's fascinating that Health Canada has only approved it for hospitals because there was no shortage in the hospitals because they can compound it themselves if they have to, because they are pharmacists. Go figure.
But now they'll be able to save themselves a step, I guess.
I'm going to have an unearth then. Like, seriously. No, it's silly. Like,
here's what my question is. If there's no shortage in the hospitals, which we haven't heard any reports of, so I'm going to say a reasonable person could assume there's no shortage in the hospitals. If they go ahead with the drugs that they'll be getting under the exemption, and the exemption is you don't have to have the bilingual labels because it's going to be just used in the hospitals in Alberta. So exemption. But like, what are the hospitals going to do with 5 million bottles?
Well, apparently they are to be distributed to other provinces. So that's why I'm questioning the bilingualism of the packaging.
Well, it's just for Alberta. The exemption is just for Alberta hospitals.
Just for Alberta hospitals.
That's my understanding.
That's.
So are they actually going to buy it and ship it to the hospitals, or are they just going to be like, "Hey, we made some progress, and look, it's a stadium."
I don't.
Maybe that's why she wants the new stadium. She needs somewhere to store 5 million bottles of children's ibuprofen and Tylenol that she can't sell in pharmacies legally.
No,
let's
give them a little bit more credit than that. It's a good photo op.
The first Flames game, everybody gets 10 bottles of unsellable children's Tylenol. We'll do a concert. We'll have you two out. It'll be great.
It's a very performative move because they really wanted to say, help is on the way, y'all. We got this. It's not a good use of taxpayers' money. I would have, compounding medication is extremely, extremely complicated. I would have maybe had a little bit more consultation with AHS to see what, with the pharmacies, see what the issue was in hospital setting. So it's complicated, man. I don't understand why they did that. Like, seriously, is it going to be solely 5 million bottles in hospitals? That's not gonna help the parents at 3 a.m. in the morning, yo.
Well, that's exactly it. That's what it makes no sense.
Costco was full this week. Costco had lots of.
Oh yeah, most of the pharmacies do now. The supply chain issues have been resolved.
It's been resolved. It's a non-issue. Yes, it was hard for a little bit. A lot of pharmacies stepped up and made the product available in suspensions. Personal note, when I use a suspension, a compound, I always give a tiny little bit less because the margin of error is, I always rather give a little bit less because the concentration could be a little off. So anyways, that's another thing. But it's swing and a miss.
Moving on. What is it? So like, it isn't very often that you see a dedicated article to a government staffer, particularly from the propaganda. I mean, the media outlet. Gosh, I don't know why I said that. True North. I mean, this is the media outlet that has the pulse of Danielle Smith by every measure, and they're doing this.
Aren't they a non-for-profit?
They are, in fact, a charity. It's almost like Danielle Smith has a proclivity for conservative organizations that operate as charities.
So it's a charity that turned itself into a news organization and is pretty much acting as a PAC.
Yep.
I said it looks like, I'm not saying they're acting.
That's what it
It
looks like.
appears that they would be taking on the role of a PAC. That's fine, right?
Totally legit.
I'm
Charitable
sure
packs.
Revenue Canada's.
Why are they doing this puff piece? Make sense of this for me. Why is Marshall Smith getting his tires pumped by True North? Like, you don't see typically, especially an organization like True North. I'm going to say, in the same sense that the content that we produce here is obviously wildly biased, and satirical and all of the things, but you don't see True North weighing in because, oh gosh, it's a slow news day. There's no more puppies to write about. We've made all of the Trudeau jokes. Let's write about Marshall Smith. Like, is a cynical person could very easily look at this and go, there's some kind of softening of the ground for Marshall Smith's next big thing. Is that overly cynical, or
Okay.
is it just a feel good story for a Sunday?
Okay. So as you know, Nate, on leadership night, the election night, my cousin passed, right?
Yeah.
October 6th. My family told me a few days later. My cousin was fighting addiction for the past 25 years. And we didn't know if or when he would lose his battle, but he lost his battle in Edmonton. Now, what I'm worried about is that they will try to form their policies on a way that worked for one individual but could harm 2,000 others. What works for one doesn't work for everyone. Addiction is an illness. Addiction is complicated. Addiction can create other debate. Oh, thank you. Sorry, I just got my pizza. Thanks, guys.
That took a hard right turn.
Sorry. So it's. I'm worried that they're going to be like, yeah, but no. Look at my chief of staff. He made it through. Look, why can't you do it? Why can't everyone be like Marshall Smith? Why can't everyone work as hard as it doesn't work that way? There's family trauma, there's childhood home trauma, there's PTSD, there's a whole bunch of things that the underlying issues of addictions are so much deeper than, hey guys, look, it worked for this guy, so let's try to soften the ground to shove a treatment that might not work and hurt everybody down their throat. I'm sorry, their app where people are consuming and setting a timer and tell them where you're at. Open consumption sites, guys. Like seriously, because there's no ambulances to go pick them up. And if they're passed out, they won't be answering their phones. And if the police shows up, well, who knows? Like,
to me, it's always
we
been.
need to. Sorry.
No.
It's so short-sighted.
The idea that you can treat, like, addiction is, you're absolutely right. It's a disease. It has organic components, which is to say it's not just all in your head. Anybody who's ever seen an alcoholic try to go through detox, anybody who's ever seen anybody who used opiates try to deal with being dope sick, knows that there's a very real physiological process that's going on there. And to say that one modality of treatment is going to work is like saying, well, I guess we only need this one antidepressant. It'll deal with all of the depression and all of the anxiety for everybody because everybody's the same. Anybody who's ever contended with any sort of mental health issue or known somebody who has knows that for a lot of people, different antidepressants, different treatment modalities work differently for different people. Some things work really well for some people. They don't work well for other people. And it's having those options available that allows people to do the recovery piece. Mm-hmm. And it's, I mean, I know that I've already plugged it. I'm going to plug it again, though. We have the interview that we did with Ewan Thompson. It's up for our Patreon supporters. You can watch the YouTube video now, but it's going to be coming out publicly on Friday. And we talk about the initiatives that we're seeing from the government with these social woes task force, and A, who's on the committees, B, who's not in any way represented on the committees. And we have questions about the creme brulee.
You cannot. The creme brulee might be a little stale. Um, so you cannot police or force someone in treatment in a salad basket. Well, what do they call it? Salads. The
Did you just have
trucks
that
with
aneurysm?
prison. No. I'm trying to find the English word. Um, the prison cell on trucks. You know, when they're just grabbing everybody and putting them at the back. How do you call that?
Oh,
The
paddy wagon.
yeah, paddy wagon. Take care. You just can't, drive on the streets, get a paddy wagon, and just load people up and drop them off at somewhere and be like, here, go get fixed. It doesn't work that
Were
way.
you saying the salad truck first?
Yeah, because in French it's like salad strainer.
You're killing me with like these translations. You ruined eggnog, and now a paddy wagon is a
I
salad
did
strainer.
not ruin the
You
eggnog.
did. I went to the store and because my kid was asking me to get some eggnog, and I looked and I was like, oh my God, it does say chicken milk. You ruined it for me.
No, I did not.
Here's my question. Let's move on from there. Because I don't want to belabor that too much, but I do want to ask you. We have this John Carpay situation that has popped up. It's turned into a whole new thing all over again. And I did apologize earlier to our audience that we missed the joke about, well, at least his bail's covered. Do you think that Danielle Smith is ever going to have to answer the question of, did you get a tax write-off for that $90,000 GoFundMe? There were a couple of lawyers on the Twitter machine this week who were saying, oh boy, if she did, that gets complicated real quick, because the money was collected under the pretenses of one thing, and then if she flipped it into another thing, there's like laws and stuff. I'm not a lawyer, but it was an interesting conversation to watch.
If I was any political party in that province right now, I would be hammering this every single day, every single hour until you get an answer. Then maybe call the ethics commissioner.
Political parties. We know a couple of you listen. You hide, but we know you're there.
They all have my phone number. They can't call me.
It seems to me like I don't understand why nobody's swinging at this thing, because it not only speaks to integrity, because she flipped the script on it. She's holding, as per her leadership campaign, she's holding on to $25,000 for, I don't know, gummy bears or something.
CBD.
Who knows? But she's holding on to some of the money. She's donated $60,000 to $90,000, depending on which paragraph you read, to the JCCF, who are an organization whose president is currently facing criminal charges for stalking a judge. I feel like there's some questions about judgment, because it's worth noting that she donated that money after all of that happened. Like, the thing with the judge was 17 months ago. John Carpay stepped away for, I think, all of 5 minutes before he came back, and his entire 2/3 of his board resigned. And he's been running the show ever since. This is all, even in the JCCF statement that they issued when he was arrested, it was very clear. Hey, this is all public record. This is all very well known. He's admitted to this. The facts of the matter don't seem to be in any contention. And yet this is the organization that Danielle Smith was like, stalking judges? Let me back you. Why is nobody jumping on this?
I think there could be an argument to be made about strategy to wait until it's closer to election, so it's fresh in the electorate's mind, and try to do a more fatal, because there's war rooms, right? We call them war rooms. But
those are the ones that don't like Bigfoot, right?
Yeah.
I have my Yeti onesie just over there.
I think I saw Bigfoot tonight on the gondola. No, just kidding. But I think that if I was the United Conservative Party, I would ask questions and try to clean the water real quick.
Well, see, this is the other piece. This is what I don't understand. Is it seems to me if Smith didn't want to have this hanging over her. I mean, there's two ways that I kind of cut this. One is she must really need that $90,000 tax write-off, or
Maybe we're making assumptions here.
we're making some assumptions. I'm saying these are ifs, but it seems to me the two options are Danielle Smith really needs that $90,000 or $60,000 tax write-off, or she doesn't just want to say, no, I didn't get a tax receipt. I'm not going to be writing it off. Like, to me, it would be, this is the easiest problem in the world to make go away and just say, you know what? I donated it to the JCCF. I didn't know about the court stuff with John Carpay. I was busy, I don't know, being Cherokee or something. And so I didn't know about the harassing of the judge. If I had, I never would have. But they have the money now. I won't be claiming a taxable donation. It's all good, guys. This is a nothing burger. The breakdowns just break down again. Like, clear the water. Why isn't she doing that?
I don't know. They haven't called me in a while. Maybe I can text them. That's the only question. But
it seems like the easiest problem in the world to solve, but they're dragging it on for almost a year now.
But that's what happened when you elect those kind of people, that they're stuck with their tinfoil hat.
We could still hear you. Let's talk about the fuel tax. We got two more to go through, and then it's pizza time. So we got the fuel tax paused. We saw the by some accounts 2-cent savings.
Oh, not even. No. In Banff, it's 165 right now. Last Thursday, I fueled up with Supreme because, my car runs on Supreme.
You're elite.
At $1. What's that?
You're elite. You're elite.
I work hard.
That's not a bad thing. You're just elite. Don't be. I'm not money shaming you.
My husband picked the car. I'm just driving. So I paid $122 last week, and on Sunday we filled up my husband's car, and it was $133. No, Monday. Sorry, because Costco was closed on Sunday. Monday, or was it Monday or Tuesday? Shoot. I'm so confused. I
think we might be approaching immaterial.
Anyways, after New Year's, he paid 10 cents more a liter than I did. What happened? I don't know. But, they're saying it's 13.9 cents, but it's reality. It's like 4.25.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Toom, I'll throw the graph back up because I knew we were going to come back to this. Dr. Toom did his little graph here, where looking at the first day, price gap estimate was 2.6 cents. So based on the complex modeling that Dr. Toom does with math that I can't pretend to wrap my head around, the amount of pass-through, the amount of savings that Albertans got for reaching $1.2 billion in revenue was 2.6 cents a liter. So worth it, not worth it?
Why starve a province from revenue for a very immaterial difference?
It's almost as if the oil companies are doing well. I've heard they've had terrible profits this year.
Oh,
that was sarcasm again. I gotta really be. I've been hearing that people are not getting my sarcasm.
I cannot comment on the oil and gas share situation because my husband is employed.
That's fair.
By an oil and gas company.
I'm not saying that oil and gas companies are bad. I'm just saying companies that like to make profits are going to try to make profits.
Oh, yeah, they will. Definitely. They don't care. They don't give a shit. They're still getting their hefty tax return at the end of the year. But no, so I don't understand why we're willing to piss away $300 million from the province's
1.2 billion a year. 1.2 billion.
Yeah, well, fine.
It's a bigger number.
So I can save, what's 2 cents times 50 liters?
I think that's $1.
It's $1. Yeah, so I can save $1.
There you go. You can get yourself a small coffee at a crappy drive-through.
No.
Last one.
Shoot.
Fundraising numbers, Sarah Biggs. We
I
got some
have
fundraising
questions.
numbers.
I have
So we got
questions.
I mean, first of all, it's pretty remarkable to me that the UCP are taking a victory lap with the we raised this much money, because including in that the leadership raised money,
Here,
which I
let's
don't.
let's do some math because I know the
Well, you
numbers.
yeah, you did the math.
Okay, it's a $10 million, right? 10 million here
It's backwards. We
minus
got to get
1,050,000 for leadership fees, minus 700,000 in leaderships and memberships that they sold. Now we're down to 8.250. Minus probably 2.5, at least $2.5 million in donations, because there's at least Daniel Smith, Travis Stays, at least fundraise $1 million. That leaves us at 6-ish. And that doesn't count the other candidates that have fundraised as well, right?
yeah. I mean, it's a lot of money, to be fair, but I'm not.
It's
Here's.
not the flex they think it is.
Did you get the code though?
Because what code?
The code flex that they did.
No.
So I'm going to bring up the
What
numbers
did I
again.
know?
I'm going to bring them up just so that everybody can appreciate this. I've been saving this for the
Is
end
it
of the show.
66666?
No, you're. The NDP raised more than $265,000 on December 31st, another record. More than $265,000, but the number that Rachel Notley tweeted out, $265,000. The UCP said, there you go.
Fuddle duddle.
$265,000 and $265,063. Sarah Biggs, for all of the balls on the table, what's 63 come from? It's the number of UCP MLAs that got elected in 2019. Now, technically, they should be down, I think, to
63.
But the 63 is very clearly a reference to the number of UCP MLAs that were elected in 2019. So, you have to give them a little bit of credit for the troll.
I'm glad to see them working on creative stuff like that when there was kids dying in the hospitals.
Well, I mean, that got dark, but you're not wrong.
But priorities, right? That's the thing. They can't align their priorities. Like, sure, you're gonna bring a whole bunch of paracetamol in the country, in the province, but cancer patients are still not getting their surgeries. So, yay?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, it's ridiculous.
I just thought it was.
It's upsetting.
It was. Haven't seen anybody else do the 63 yet, and so I've been sitting on it all day, and I wanted to share it.
I can't believe you didn't text me that.
Well, I like surprises.
Did not text me that.
I like surprises. Gotta keep it fresh. Plus, I got to giggle. I don't know. You guys think you need to plug? Anything you want to plug? Anything going on? What are you watching for? We're coming back on Sunday. What are you watching for between now and Sunday? Other than 10 planes of hospital-only grade.
Are they going to be wearing UPS vests?
I hope so.
What I'm watching for my Dyson hairdryer to come in tomorrow. That's going to be my big thing tomorrow. What am I watching? Not much. I think it's going to be a quiet week. But if I was the other party, I would start hammering on that GCCF thing right away and beat it until it is done. That's my professional recommendation. I don't know what to expect. They're in budget consultations right now, so that's going to be interesting. Because they technically, before the Christmas break, you are supposed to you're supposed to be done with your first draft of the budget. Then you can go in consultation and be like, okay, we heard you. And then you finalize the budget.
Oh, is that why they had to leave early? They needed the extra time?
I don't know. Probably not.
Who's
And
next?
then we're going to be able to see how performative the Alberta Sovereignty Act was. And seriously, I think that no, I can't say that. Let's see what Health Canada says about the at-home usage of the paracetamol from Atabay. I'm gonna
Well, they got
start
to do the
calling
labeling.
them out. I'm gonna start. Well, they can call me if they need French translation. I'm cheap. But
Chicken milk.
I'm gonna chicken milk. I'm gonna start calling them Ataboys and.
There you go. Who's the next staffer before I do the plugs? Who's the next staffer to get a puff piece? Who's going to get the royal True North treatment? I cannot wait till we put together the whole package that we have on True North. It's going to be so much fun.
Oh boy, I don't know.
You got to pick one. Who's it going to be?
It makes me sad because there's people in that party that I do personally like. They're lovely people. They truly are people. Makes me sad. I don't know.
You can pick an MLA if you want to.
No. What's his name? Sir, the new guy that just got elected, nominated. They'll stoke him, and probably Chantal Deange too.
Oh, there you go. Well, yeah,
because on TV this week, political scientists said that Leela here, if she wanted to run, for another party or as an independent, she could still win this.
Yep, Lori Williams came out with Global, and she said that if Leela here decided to run as an independent, or she even threw down the dreaded watching everybody's heads explode, she said the Alberta Party name. But I mean, the reality is, I'm a little conflicted. Like, I have a lot of issues with Chantal de Jungi.
That dental hygienist.
Well, her politics are gross, but I'm not sure that people should be dunking on the dental hygienist bit. That just feels like cheap. Make fun of her for her
but after everything they've
mid-century
done,
views.
Yeah, but for me, after everything they've done, everything they said, I have zero.
Yeah, you got some bias. That's fair.
I'm done. Yeah.
I want to talk real quick about the next two interview episodes that we've got coming up. I've plugged one like 16 times already. That's the interview we did with Ewan Thompson from Each and Every, where he talks about the social woes panel. It gets spicy. If you're one of our patron supporters already, I would strongly encourage you to watch it, because we're going to be dropping it publicly on Friday. But we're trying to, one of the goals for the new year is to allow a little bit more special time for our Patreon sponsors with our stuffs. And it's a really good, Ewan is a very well-informed, passionate dude. He has been advocating for Narcan use and Narcan accessibility for businesses for a long time. We did an interview with Each and Every, like, I think 2 years ago now, coming up to. They're a committed group. They are on the ground level, and they have very real concerns for what's going on with this initiative that we're seeing from the UCP. The other thing that I want to mention is that we just did an interview that's going to be dropping for our Patreon sponsors next week with an amazing person from Alberta. I'm going to be a little bit vague just to build suspense. But we just did an amazing interview with this person who used to be a big time deal in the anti-vax. The word she uses is crunchy movement. And she's since moved away from being an anti-vax, all of the things person to, she started an organization called Back to the Vax, with a partner from I believe is from the States, where they are using evidence-based and their own experiences to get people who are otherwise vaccine hesitant to reconsider their positions. It was an amazing conversation. I'm really, really excited to share it. So keep your eyes out for that. As always, if you appreciate the kind of content that we're producing here at The Breakdown, we would love nothing more than if you signed up to be one of our Patreon sponsors at www.patreon.com/thebreakdownab, where for the price of just a fancy cup of coffee a month, you can not only get early access to our super dope interview episodes, but we try to throw the perks out. You can ask questions, you can say hateful things. It's all good. And it helps us buy toys to continue to do the things. It pays for the live streaming stuff that we're doing now. So bonus and super nice. Sarah, you got anything to add before we wrap it up? We kept it to just over an hour. I love it.
I know, that's crazy. No, just try to rest, guys, because it's gonna get busy real soon.
Election's coming. One more real quick. Actually,
yeah.
Charles Rusnell, dude came out swinging.
Yes. Did I miss that?
He endorsed Rachel Notley. Not Charles Rusnell. No. Too many media figures in my head.
Chuck. I call him Chuck.
Charles Russell did not endorse Rachel Notley. Let me walk that one back in a hurry.
Adler. Chuck. No.
Does that move the needle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got like people in the comments right now are going Adler, and it's been a long day. I was up early this morning.
He's from Montreal. I'm from Montreal too. We bonded over our love of bagels.
You know, I gotta say, he's awesome.
He is.
I have so much respect for that dude, just because he's funny, he's clever. His holding to task of Kenny in 2019 was a masterclass in interview skills, and he's not one of those tribal conservatives. He has no problem saying, you guys are doing things real bad, I don't like it. And the fact that he's positioned himself with Rachel Notley is, I don't know.
Not all of us are like them. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's like the political spectrum's a spectrum. You know, we got a two-party system right now, so is what it is. Yeah. Anything else you want to add there, Sarah Biggs?
Oh, I'm just wondering who's going to win the House.
Oh, in the States?
The Democrats. Yeah.
Oh, I don't care about that at all.
I do, because it says here. Okay, but no, we'll see you Sunday.
What vote are we on? Like 7 or 8 now?
What?
For the Speaker of the House, weren't they like? Isn't that like the song that never ends or something now?
Oh, yeah. Like they're being jerks. Let me check.
We'll get back to that. We'll get back to that on Sunday.
Where's CNN? I lost CNN. Hold on. CNN. Let me check.
9. Plain Power.
6 votes, 2 days. 9. Yeah.
Wow, that's nuts. All right, that's it for us for tonight, folks. Thank you so much for everybody who has tuned in tonight, whether you've been listening on the Twitter Spaces, whether you are catching the live stream on the Facebook or the YouTube or the Twitter machine as well. Thank you so much for choosing to spend a little bit of time. If you're listening to the podcast version, we've angered some of the anti-vax folks. Apparently, there's some of the TBA affiliated folks who don't like some of the things that we've been saying. They've left some reviews on the podcast. So if you're bored and you have a few minutes and you wouldn't mind swinging by to offset some of the reviews, that would be delightful. I'm going to be looking forward to, I don't know exactly what the process is, but I'm looking forward to accepting my Baboon of the Year award. I don't know. I feel like it should be fuzzy. I don't know. I'm looking forward to receiving it in the mail. But yeah, if you have a sec, leave a review on the Apple Podcasts, because that would be delightful. As always, thank you again. And until we see you on Sunday, take care of yourselves and keep the conversation going.